I was a CEO of a company that failed. Take about 2 to 3 weeks just to understand what's going on here. Don't break things, don't give people feedback, don't give anyone any recommendations. Basically what happened, we gave it out at trade shows, people were lining up, and I put a price, $4.99. It's like, do we have to pay for this? And then we did the classic Israeli thing. Yes, of course, but for you, my friend, it is free. I had no knowledge and I had no experience, but when I came to the interview, I came very, very well prepared. Like when the hiring manager asked me, so what do you know about the company? I told him everything about the company, including who they compete against. Regarding marketing influence is David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy is, some people call him the father of marketing.
Welcome to another episode of Talk with the Scot. I'm here in Tel Aviv at the company known as Whisky with CMO Michael Yehoshua. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And because you're the Scot, I brought you special whiskey from my private collection.
There we go.
Take a cheers. This is a 22-year-old whiskey, aged in 3 different casks, but mostly sherry. And tell me what you think.
All right. Very nice. We've got to explain.
Explain what?
Your birthday's in 2 days' time.
All right.
So we're having a bit of a celebration.
That's correct. We're drinking whiskey to celebrate that as well, but that's why we have another bottle here.
All right. It's 9:30 in the morning. We're having a little whiskey. That's not usually how I start a episode of the podcast, but we're making exceptions here.
This is the Y stamp experience.
The Y stamp. All right. How I usually start an episode is asking the same one question at the beginning, which is, what makes a successful manager?
Okay, so what I learned, what makes a successful manager, it's not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about really caring about the actual workers. Now, I know this sounds like cliche, but our human resources or our workers are our biggest asset.
Agreed.
Marketing isn't done in silos and it isn't done by a one-man show, especially at large scale. And it's all about empowering a team, having a team that has a team that buys in to what it is that you're trying to do, and a team that really has your trust. And if you're able to do that as a manager, you'll go pretty far.
So you've just thrown out a lot of sort of trigger words, like empowerment and trust. And how did you, obviously, me and you have known each other for a good number of years. I've seen you come into a company, scale it, do fantastic work, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. But when you join a company like Whisky, for example, you've been here for 2 months, maybe?
Right.
You're building a team, but the staff that are here, how do you get them on side straight away?
Okay, so first and foremost, when you're joining a new environment, again, I didn't build this team, I inherited this team.
Yeah.
When you're going into a team that you didn't build on your own, first and foremost, don't start breaking things. First, you need to understand why things are working the way that they're working. And so my CEO actually told me when I got in, he told me, listen, I know that you have a lot of ideas, and I know that you've seen a lot of things, and I know that you scaled businesses up. First and foremost, take about 2 to 3 weeks just to understand what's going on here. Don't break things. Don't give people feedback. Don't give anyone any recommendations. Sit down and take notes. And there's one thing I love to do. I love to write things down.
You do.
I love to jot them down. And I took a lot of notes. And only little by little, after some time, that I started giving feedback. First, it was with very positive feedback, which is always the way that people should do things. And then afterwards, when things need to be optimized, you need to go ahead and give that feedback. But in a proper way, right? There is the sandwich method, right?
Go on.
You say a few good things, then you add in the feedback that needs to change, and you finish it with more good things. This is the sandwich method. It's used a lot in HR.
Yeah.
When I would give over ideas in management, we would call it the shit sandwich, where you have the 2 crappy ideas on the front and on the bottom, and a good idea out there in the middle. And this kind of methodology really, really works. And ultimately, gain the trust of the people. Then afterwards, it's time to start showing some quick wins. Make some quick optimizations, things that will actually resonate with the team. People understand that you actually know what you're talking about, and the results speak for themselves. When people start seeing that a new person in a position, whether it's a CMO or VP sales or whatnot, You come in and little by little, things start to change for the better. People are like, you know what? I trust this person. And that's how you build it.
Senior management don't always see it like that, because I know you've had experiences in the past where we've worked together. You've built solid foundations, built a team, like campaigns are going well, results, the funnel is moving in the right direction. But something's going on here, a lot of noise is going on. How do you deal with that? How do you block out that sort of noise from maybe people that don't understand how to scale campaigns, marketing campaigns, or how to scale marketing teams? How do you deal with that?
So one of the biggest problems in marketing is that everybody who doesn't do marketing thinks that they know marketing.
Yeah.
And you know what else they think? They think that our job is actually easy. And so that's one thing that you'll always have to deal with in marketing. However, usually the noise would come from senior management, and it was usually the CEO. And the CEO has the board of investors on his mind. He has the executive board that's driving him crazy and pushing him for results. And sometimes things in marketing actually take time. Just like this whiskey needed 22 years to mature in a barrel in order to get these results.
Yeah.
And if I would have pulled this out, after 3 years because I needed ROI, I wouldn't have had this.
Absolutely.
And people don't understand that marketing is the same way. Marketing is a long-term investment. Now, when you understand your CEO's point of view and you understand the needs that results need to be done quickly, the best way to communicate that is actually by showing them the strategy, showing them the long-term strategy and the roadmap, and showing them all the small little wins and sometimes the failures that you're getting along the way. This way, they see progress. Now, eventually, sometimes CEOs will cut bait and, it is what it is, and that has happened in the past. But for the most part, good CEOs, people who actually care about their business, and those who understand what marketing is all about, they know that if there is a good strategy in place, and there's a team that you can trust, and you're starting to see little increment results, then things are going well, and you'll get that big monkey off of your back.
So you have experienced like real startup culture, and you're now in it's an established company here.
That's correct.
What's been the biggest learning curve for you in the last couple of months?
Okay, so there's a very big difference into going into a company when everything is chaos, and you need to figure out how to make this chaos work. Because in the smaller companies and in the smaller startups, people don't know. They don't have a defined market. They don't have an ICP, which is an ideal customer profile. They don't have the product and the market fit necessarily aligned. And with the startups, you really need to figure things out from scratch. You need to understand, how do I even make this work? And then little by little build things progressively. At an established company like Ystamp that's been around for about 16 years and have 1.2 million active customers, and we have a very strong inbound machine where we get close to 50,000 inbound leads a month. It's a very different story. Whereas over here, we have a machine that's working, that's successful, that's bringing revenue, and is growing itself year after year. And my challenge now is how to scale this up even further, and how to take something that already works and make it work even better. But at the same time, if I do crazy experiments and I break down the machine, I could end up in a lot of hot water, and so can all the other, almost 200 people that are working here. We want to make sure that everyone keeps their jobs and continues to succeed. And so it's a different kind of challenge, but it's not something that I haven't done before. And it's just a matter of really knowing your stuff, looking at the data, experimenting at smaller scales, and working your way up from there.
Okay. Is that because I know you to be a highly creative person? You've written
comic books and graphic novels?
Yes. Is that what attracted you to the world of marketing in the first place? Just that level of creativity?
No, not at all. I always wanted to do marketing. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. That's why my college degree was in marketing and my master's was in marketing. And I knew that I had the skill. Really, marketing in one word is persuasion. It's a personal story. I had a friend many years ago when I was in high school who got involved with some shady people and didn't know how to get out of it. And I remember he was on the roof and he wanted to jump to the abyss. And I was able to convince him to step off the ledge. And then I understood that I had a really, really good power of persuasion. And so I figured, instead of taking this to other levels or to other places, let me focus that on marketing and let's focus that on business. And even though I did start working in sales because, naturally, I'm a good seller, I decided to take my hobby into marketing and to take it from there. And the creativity just comes from actually doing the work, being involved in the work. Our VP product, Jonathan Levy, wrote a book about this, that a lot of times people think that if they do crazy things, they'll reach creativity, when actually at the end, when you actually do the work, that's when all the good ideas pop up. And that's also where the ideas for the comic book came up. It was after Stan Lee, the writer of Spider-Man comics, died. They filmed the movie in my backyard in Forest Hills, the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Okay. Uncle Ben's house was also around the corner from us. And I was fascinated by Spider-Man growing up. And when he passed away, I wanted to do something to honor his legacy. So first I thought, wait, let me do an ad with like a superhero. And I said, wait a second, we just released a new product. Why don't we take those release notes and turn those features into a comic book? My manager, who was the VP product at the time, said, well, try it. And it turned out that it was a big launch pad for lots of other comic books that I've done over the years and other great awareness. Like, again, I ended up at Larry Ellison's house in California after I wrote my second comic book. And this helped a tiny little company at the time gain tremendous brand awareness. And eventually they sold to Honeywell. So definitely not a shabby...
Absolutely.
Not a shabby thing. But again, it was just, by doing the work, that's where all the ideas come from. And the more you do it, right? Steve Jobs always says, the harder I work, the luckier I get. It's magic.
So do you think that is the foundation for everything? Like you've given some examples there of, well, some of them have definitely been sort of crisis and turned them into opportunities. Do you think at its core, it comes down to working hard and just pushing forward?
So yes. Now, we're talking about creativity here, right?
Yeah.
So if you do creativity without business value, that's just a hobby. And if you just do things that focus only on growth and they don't have creativity, then they're not memorable. The most important thing is to try to combine those two things together, right? So when I did the second comic book, it was my daughter who inspired it. She was 6 at the time. And she said, Dad, what do you do at your new job? And I said, why don't I draw it out for you? And I drew a story, really, that you can explain to a 6-year-old. But I did know that I'm going to give this out at trade shows. And that's basically what happened. We gave it out at trade shows. People were lining up, and I put a price, $4.99. It's like, do we have to pay for this? And then we did the classic Israeli thing. Yes, of course. But for you, my friend, it is free. And, it was really nice. It gained a lot of attention. And I've done a lot of these things over the years. And it just wasn't just with comic books, right? We did cocktail books, and we had a lot of very crazy campaigns that we've done over the years. And we like to focus that creativity to make sure that there's actual business value. And but how do you get to those creativity things? It's usually by working hard. There's no shortcut to that.
And everything you do, we're going to talk a little bit about sort of the process that you go through. But before you start any process, or whether it's a campaign or even starting a new job, whatever it might be, do you always have the end goal in mind? Are you always thinking about the ROI?
Yes. So it's not just the ROI, it's the KPIs, the key performance indicators. Like, we're doing this and we're spending this because we want to reach that.
Yeah.
And now, so now my goal is, all right, I need to have, I'm going to an event and I want to have, 500 demos, right? How many people do I need to come to this event in order to reach that number of 500 demos? And then we work backwards. It's not like, all right, we'll go to the event, we'll see what happens. If we get leads, we get leads. If we don't, we don't. I can never justify an expense of, going to an event and flying 10 people out to San Francisco just with a dream and a hope. It just doesn't work that way. Put together a plan, you work your way backwards, you make sure that everything you have is planned and set in stone. Obviously, things will change and things will mess up and, people will lose their luggage and your booth won't arrive until 3 days after the conference. And we've had all those nightmares happen in the past. But the goal is, first, understand what your KPIs are, work your way back, and then afterwards, right, shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you still land among the stars.
So it's interesting because obviously people that are watching this, some may know you, some may not. Having got to know you over probably the last sort of 5 years or so, when I think of you, hard work, like incredibly hardworking,
Right.
to the point where, if I remember correctly, you put yourself in hospital a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So incredibly
Imagine it.
hardworking, incredibly creative. You also have a level of patience, which is not, and I say that because I think it's a quality. There are lots of CMOs, VPs of marketing, where they want to see the results yesterday. So you have a high level of patience so long as you see the potential. Is that a fairly accurate description of you?
That's correct. The hard work is true. It's something I enjoy to do. The creativity, like I said, comes from work. And patience is because I was once a junior marketer. I wasn't a CMO from day one. I had to work my way up from zero, and I had to do it twice. I had to work my way up back in the US when I worked my way up to VP marketing. And then when I came to Israel, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a network. We didn't have the fantastic communities like we have today. I basically came to this country with no connections. And so I would send, resumes here and there, and really nobody cared.
Yeah.
And so I was doing social media, earning 200 shekels a night. Yeah, big money. And then I was looking for work. I remember I was an SDR working America hours for 2 months without getting paid until I realized I was getting scammed. So I was welcome to Israel, doing hundreds of dials a day and actually closing some deals. And then I worked as a content writer, writing blog posts for jewelry that no one wants to buy.
You grafted hard.
Exactly. And again, when I got into cybersecurity, I had no knowledge and I had no experience. But when I came to the interview, I came very, very well prepared. Like when the hiring manager asked me, "So what do you know about the company?" I told him everything about the company, including who they compete against. And he asked me, "So what do you know about the technology?" And I actually gave him a really rough breakdown of what the technology does. I was a trained parrot, but I sounded really smart. And so the guy asked me, "So wait, like how much experience do you have in cybersecurity?" I told him, "Well, 48 hours since I got this interview." He's like, "Damn, if you can do that in 48 hours, welcome to the team." And I started off as a junior marketer again.
Yep.
I was the only guy there. I had to work my way up from nothing. I remember I was reading Gartner reports for like 2 months because I didn't understand what the hell was going on. And it's really started from nothing. And I needed to work my way up until I was able to reach the VP marketing level, and then from there to CMO. But it was a hard experience, and I learned a lot over the years. And when I look at some of those younger junior marketers, I know where they're standing because I was once standing in their shoes.
Yep.
And I want them all to succeed. And I know that not everyone is built for the C-suite, and not everyone's going to be a CMO one day, but you need to give them the tools that they need in order to succeed. Because my managers, they took care of me, and I want to take care of the next generation.
First of all, I agree with everything that you just said. But surely it's got to be a two-way process, or a two-way agreement, in the extent that if you're wanting to get into marketing and you've been given an opportunity for an interview, don't turn up not prepared. Like, the obvious question in an interview that somebody's going to ask you is, what do you know about us as a company? And if you can't answer that question, or you just, you can tell that the person's gone onto the website and read a page. Like, forget marketers, experienced workers will see through that in seconds. And I'm saying that because that's totally the opposite of what you've just said. And I interviewed somebody about within the last 6 months, and I asked them that very question. What do you know about, like in this case, obviously Wadi? What do you know about Wadi? And the answer was, "Oh, you do digital marketing." I was like, "Okay, what else?" And you could tell that they didn't have an answer beyond that. And it leaves you with the impression of, if you're not going to put in the time to research, if you're not going to put in the time just to build out some good sell yourself. And I think that is the most important. And I actually, as you know, I've got 3 kids. I always say to my kids, put yourself in a position, first of all, and once you get that opportunity, sell yourself. Don't be scared to sell yourself. And it drives me crazy when people get the opportunity and they don't grab it with both hands.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Now, sometimes you can even ask people in interviews to sell their current company, what it is that they do. And if not, they're not able to sell what they do currently, that's also another red flag in hiring. So again, this really separates the better marketers from the latter. But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
lot of stories on interviews. I can like we do a whole other podcast.
No, for sure. You know what? When I was 23, 24, so a long, long time ago, I went for a job interview in London because I was living in London at the time. And it was a sales job. And I'm sitting there across the table from the hiring manager, and he lifts up a pen like this, no different to this. And he gave it to me and he said, "Sell me the pen." I got the job, but it's things like that. Like
Wait, what did you say?
Well, I asked him a few questions at the beginning. What do you need it for? How often are you going to be using it?
Are you in the market for a pen?
Well, yeah. And then you flipped it around. He built out the
That's from Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of
yeah,
Wall Street.
Yeah. He built out the role play of he was a journalist.
Fantastic.
So I took it from that, you know. So when you see junior marketers, and I know this is a bit of a generalization, but let's go down the path a little bit. Do you find that willingness to work hard and see through to the very end? It's maybe changed over the years. Maybe that's a sort of end result of social media, the instant gratification.
No, not at all. I don't see it that way. I see junior marketers as aspiring people. Most of them really want to succeed. I remember when I was a junior marketer, I was the same. I always wanted to work my way up to become who I am today one day.
Yep.
One of the things two things that I like to do with junior marketers, and that's the push and the pull method. The pull is I like to pull things out of them, which means asking the right questions. Now, junior marketers are very focused with the task at hand. Sometimes they don't have the ability to take a step back, to zoom out, and to see the bigger picture. And when you're managing younger or junior marketers, you need to know how to do this pull approach where you have them stop, you have them think, and you take out all the good ideas that they have and show them that they actually have it within them. And that really empowers them. Number two is the push approach, which you have to push young marketers to become better versions of themselves, whether that's educating themselves, whether that's learning new things, learning new technologies, or giving them responsibilities that they're not qualified to do.
Yeah.
Like again, I needed to run like a trade show. I had a junior marketer who was working for me. She was not qualified, but I gave her the responsibility. And I told her, listen, I need you to be on top of this. This is going to be your big thing. I knew that she wasn't there, but she worked hard and she pushed and she pushed. She didn't do a perfect job. I had to correct a lot of things behind the scenes, but she was able to take that successfully, and she took a big burden off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
And so many of the marketers that worked under me today are in more senior positions, and that's because I like to invest into the marketers. Just like my managers invested in me, and well, some of them were dicks, but most of them actually had good intentions. And I believe it's what I do, giving to the community. That's why I attend a lot of events and I speak at a lot of events. And I'm even doing this talk with you today to help to inspire the next generation. And I am available. People can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I'll answer questions.
I will put Michael's LinkedIn on the screen.
Okay.
You're going to get bombarded.
Feel free to ask.
No, but I agree with you. As you know, a number of years ago, I had my own agency. And 4 new agencies were created on the back of that agency. Wow. Staff that I'd helped train, certainly not claiming all the credit. Lots of people were invested in the process, but they left my agency and they set up on their own. And I've been asked the question, did you not mind the competition? No. I firmly believe if you're good enough, you'll survive. And if you need to reinvent yourself to keep alive, do it. Don't be scared of stepping outside that comfort zone and testing the water a little bit.
That's true. Even today, like I will involve my marketing team with decisions that we're making in management, with discussions that we're having with the board. I want people to understand the bigger picture. And when people understand the bigger picture, they actually move better towards the same goal. It's not about, oh yeah, I'm here on this ivory tower and you guys can't reach that. No, I want everyone to know that these things are accessible. I will send my workers today to attend CMO meetings because I just don't have the bandwidth. Like
Yeah.
I'll have time for your podcast. I won't have time for a CMO meeting, but I will send them. I'll say, guys, take notes. Tell me what you got out of it. And then I would sit and have a discussion with them, and I would listen to see what it is that they got out of that meeting. A, it saves me time, and B, it helps to build them up as well. Again, hopefully, everyone here that's working under me will either be a VP marketing or CMO someday. And when that happens, I will celebrate. And those of my workers who got more senior positions, they know that I was bummed out that I lost out on a fantastic worker, but I was really happy for them, and I'm still in touch with them today. And we're here to help you grow.
So then, how it's coming across very clearly? You invest huge amounts of time in your job, equally as much time in your respective staff. How do you deal with it when it doesn't work out, though? If you have a staff member, you've invested all that time, and for whatever reason, I'm not saying it's your fault, I'm not saying it's that person's fault, it just doesn't work out. How do you deal with that?
Well, it has happened, and it has happened many times. First of all, within the hiring process, it's very important to be very transparent with what the job will be like, what the requirements would be like. Sometimes people would be willing to do that just because they need a job and they need to get out of their current situation, and they use your work just to put something on their resume to get their next place. But it is what it is, right? Your salary, I heard someone say this, your salary is your company's monthly subscription of you. That's basically what it is. And when that subscription ends, it ends. But while people are here, they're going to grow, they're going to be mentored, and they're going to get the attention that they deserve in order to help their career grow and to take them to the next level. And I hope it's like that at every company. But if a worker decides to move on, or it's not the right fit, or they've spent too much time at the company, or they feel like they're hitting a dead end, like they feel like they're ready for the next level, and the company needs them to do something specific, it's fine. It is what it is. Ultimately, what's most important is to do things nicely and do things respectfully. Like I had to give 30-day notice whenever I would leave a company. All those 30 days, I would show up to work. I would do my work faithfully. And when time was over, I would send them back all my equipment.
You don't burn bridges.
Well, sometimes it happens, but you try not to.
Yeah.
You really try not to, because you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely. How do you deal with the conflict? Because, you have moved jobs in the last few years a couple of times, potentially not always as smooth as you would like. How do you deal with the conflict that may arise from situations like that?
So it really boils down to be very honest and being very truthful. Again, when I left the company a few years ago, it was a very difficult decision. I remember for like a few days, like I needed to go back and forth and like think about how am I going to communicate this. And it was very, very difficult. I'm sure they didn't take it very well. But at the end of the day, like whatever, the company moved on, they succeeded, they did well. The foundations were there ready for the next person. And listen, ultimately, you just do it in a respectful way, and whatever, you be in touch. You try to be in touch with the people later on, and it worked out at the end. But it's difficult. It's never an easy decision, especially something that you put a lot of time and resources into, especially as a member of management. But these things happen.
And probably even more so, living and working in a small country.
Yeah.
Where, for better or for worse, people talk you.
Yeah.
And you can spend years building up your reputation, and you can lose it like that just because somebody might be in a meeting and drops in, that Michael Yehoshua, whatever. He's a great guy. He's not done anything wrong. I'm just saying.
But
it can happen.
Of course.
Because we've all been in meetings or environments where we've heard other people talk about other people.
That's correct.
So I think for anybody at any stage of their career, whether it's junior or CMO, treat people the way you want to be treated, because the last thing you want is for people to be bad-mouthing you.
That's correct. And references work very interesting in this country. People put in like on their resume 4 or 5 references, or sometimes 3 references. But if I know their previous manager or person, like if you were the manager of somebody and I'm recruiting them to here, yo, don't worry, it's not happening. And I would say, hey, Paul, listen, tell me, what's Jonathan like? And he'll tell me, well, Jonathan, yeah, stay away. I don't care how good his his references are, and it could be his brother and his cousin who are doing the reference. If I hear from someone who I know and I trust, stay away, I stay away.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people do the same because people know that they're betting very, very hard on the next person who's going to be there, and hiring the wrong person can actually set back the company months and sometimes years.
Yeah.
And so you really, really need to make sure that you're getting the right person. And so having those connections and knowing those people, it's important. So granted, you can be loved by everybody, but your body of work and your attitude needs to speak for itself. And just don't be dicks to people.
No, I absolutely agree. So you're a young guy growing up in New York.
Yeah.
You outlined before, you studied marketing. Who influenced you? Like, you talked about Superman, or Spider-Man rather, sorry. But what were you reading when you were younger? Where did the passion for marketing come from? And who was it that really gave you that passion?
Okay, so the person who I can attribute this to the most is actually my dad, who's a very influential community leader in the United States and Canada. He's a chief rabbi. Has a very large community, around 300,000 people in the community, all across the US and Canada. And my father taught me management, really, from a young age, watching someone who leads a very large community. Granted, there were some times my father would travel a lot and wouldn't be there with us, but for the most part, Shabbats, weekends, we always spent time together. And he taught me a lot of lessons that were very important in life. And until today, we're very, very close, and he teaches me a lot. So that's definitely an influence. Regarding marketing influence is David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy is, some people call him the father of marketing. I read a book of his called The Confession of an Advertising Professional or something like that. That's the name of the book. It's a fantastic book. I strongly recommend it. I studied him a lot in undergrad and in graduate school. A lot of the campaigns that he put together. I think even the show Mad Men is somehow based on his genius.
It's a great show.
David Ogilvy for me would be my marketing go-to. And even today, when I need inspiration, I read his books again, and all of a sudden it sparks an idea. I was like, wait a second, I could do this. Wait a second, I could do that. And then I'm crazy enough to actually try and do it.
But what's wrong with that?
No, nothing wrong. What's wrong is that people are very afraid of trying things.
Yeah.
And they do things that are conventional wisdom, and they do best practices. And when you do best practices in marketing, you're not standing out, you're just blending in. And that's a big mistake.
That's one of the things that I often say to my team. What's the worst case scenario? You're not going to break anything.
Right.
Okay? The worst case scenario is that you might waste 3 or 4 hours of your time, or a day of your time, whatever it might be. I was like, we can deal with that, because for me as a manager, longer term lessons and the values that they will gain from that failure will far outweigh the benefits of succeeding.
Of course, that's what I remember the most. I learned the most from my failures, not from my successes.
For sure, absolutely. But not lots of people. You'd be amazed how many people don't see it like that. You've just wasted 3 hours, 4 hours of your time. How am I going to get that back?
So Thomas Edison, when he was inventing the light bulb, he didn't say, I failed 999 times. He said, I learned that there are 999 times how not to make a light bulb. And you got to take that approach. I think there's even something more fascinating with Thomas Edison. It was actually about his mother. When he was a kid, he was sent home from school, and his teacher actually wrote that this kid is terribly stupid. He's absolutely worthless. Nothing will ever come out of him. And he sent the letter home with little Thomas. Now, Thomas's mother could have read the letter and done what any typical Israeli mother would do. Sorry. What's wrong with you? Why are you not paying attention in school? She could have yelled and scolded at him.
Yep.
But what she said, wow, your principal actually said that you're such a smart boy that you don't belong in this school. You belong in a school for very, very smart people. And therefore, I'm going to enroll you in a different school tomorrow for smarter kids because you're a really smart boy. And this person, Thomas Edison, went and invented a lot of things, including the light bulb and some others. And it's that sort of approach where she did it as a parent, but also as a mentor and as a manager. You need to allow that culture of experimentation. You need to allow for that culture of making mistakes, because ultimately people are here to grow. Not everyone has the right answers, but people who ask the right questions are going to get very far. I know this is a recurring theme.
No, but I think it's important. I think it's an important theme. Like it's a lot of it is about the power of listening.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with somebody last week, I think, or within the last couple of weeks, and I said, I'm lucky because I work alongside, six amazingly talented people. I was like, sometimes I need to ask one simple question and then just shut up. Simply shut up and let them speak. And, you used to be in sales, I used to be in sales. That ability to simply shut up and listen, a lot of people find it very, very challenging to do because they're constantly thinking, wait, hold on. No, just be quiet and let the other person speak because you find out huge amounts of information about the other person, so professionally and personally. And then you can use that for later on.
That's why today conversations are not like what they used to be, because people respond in order to say something and not to actually listen to what the other person is saying. Also, very important in it to listen to what your customers want. But yeah, people always forget about that for some reason.
Yeah, no. It frightens me to the extent how little some people listen or don't listen.
Yeah.
Because they miss out on so much good information, and they could probably have wrapped up the conversation half an hour earlier.
Yep.
Just by having that skill set.
Agreed.
It's crazy. Sitting here now, nearly 36, 37?
Shy, don't talk about my age.
51. Well, when you look back over the last X number of years of your career, has it gone the way you expected? Do you look at yourself and think, you know what? I've actually overachieved?
Never. I never look at it that way. I always look at it as if it's never enough. And this is only the beginning. And I've done absolutely nothing. I haven't even reached my prime yet. All of my better years are ahead of me. What I've done in the past, it was a nice way. It's like a nice appetizer. But the main course is coming. So be ready.
The main course is coming in terms of knowledge, creativity, results, or what? Where do you see the next 10 years of your career going? And I'm not saying that, don't sit here saying that you're going to be out of here in 3 years' time.
No, that's not the point. I'm thinking of, when you first start out, you're just making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, once you pass that stage, which is usually your 20s, then afterwards you start actually learning. Now, because I am, again, maybe younger than most CMOs.
Than me.
I've already made a lot of mistakes in the past. I've already had a lot of successes. I'm still not perfect, but career-wise, I think I'm in a better place because of all those experiences. Had to deal with failures, had to deal with my last company failing, which again could have not been in my hands. It was mainly due to the war, but still.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that you learn over the years, and when you apply that knowledge to where you are today, I'm a much more finished product than I was even about 2-3 years ago. And so the opportunities to grow are much higher. Listen, sometimes it's just a matter of luck, and sometimes the smartest people, right, end up failing, right? Pablo Picasso, right? He died hungry, and then his paintings became famous after his time. So sometimes it's the right timing, and sometimes it's just a matter of luck. But ultimately, I think now we can only go up from here. And continue, whatever. I tell everyone, continue to, stay dangerous, continue to experiment, continue to fail, because that's how you're going to get success.
Yeah. It's funny, I was standing in my kitchen, I don't know, maybe 9 months ago, making dinner with my wife, and I said to her, this AI stuff is going to put me in an early grave. And she laughed. And it's funny because, first of all, I think AI is amazing, and certainly use it in a number of different ways. But being my age, because I'm older than you, being my age and having to sort of relearn something new, on one hand, it's great because it's something that I talk to my kids about. My kids are teenagers. I talk to them a lot about AI and the internet and how people are searching and navigating. And I watch them a lot as well. But at the same time, I now know what our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation probably felt when the internet started.
So yes and no. My grandma, God bless her, wishing her good health. She's in her 90s. She has the latest smartphone and she knows exactly how to use it. She told me, listen, I might need a little bit more time than most people, but I'll figure it out. And if you take that kind of approach,
Yeah.
we're saying, you know what, this is the new reality. I'll
Yeah.
adapt to it. It's sort of adapt or die. And that's
Absolutely.
why obviously she's still living, and she it doesn't bother her, these things. Like, you know what, it's a new technology, I'll get into it.
You'll get it.
And she'll do it.
So going back to marketing, where do you see AI, like the role of AI within marketing? How's it going to evolve over the next, I was going to say few years, but it's moving so rapidly.
Correct.
Over 6 months, or, it really is frightening.
So yes, definitely. AI is here and it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And it's going to make lives easier for many people. I can tell you from our company's perspective, we don't think that AI would replace people, but we do think that it's going to make the lives of each and every one of us easier, which means all the people here will be able to be much more productive using tools of AI. And we put a big emphasis at YStamp on empowering all the departments of the company to use AI. We pay for those subscriptions. They come out of the marketing budget because, I'm the most generous person at the company by, not by choice, but yeah. But really, we invest in this because we want people to learn how to use AI. And we have some fantastic new things that we do with AI. I can't mention all of them in public, but it makes our processes much more, much sharper. It does a lot of shortcuts for us. It analyzes a tremendous amount of information and gives us exactly, to find those needles in the haystack.
Yeah.
It helps us to identify patterns. We do this in customer success. We do this in marketing. We do this in sales. We do this in R&D. We do this in product. Obviously, we don't use that code in our product, but we're able to move much faster with AI. And this sort of gives us like a little boost. Could be in the future that it can do a lot of other things, but we don't believe that AI is going to replace people. We believe it's going to make people's lives easier.
If it's used properly.
If it's used properly, that's correct. Otherwise, you can just use it and look like an idiot. What was it? In these ever-changing times, right?
Absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy. But even, just a few days ago, my daughter had a science test, and she was sitting there and she's studying for the test. This is too much information. I can't. And I just sat there, didn't say anything. An hour later, she came back. So I took all the information and I put it into AI, ChatGPT, and it's come back to me and it's summarized it into like 4 points. I remember the 4 points and I now know the stuff. She's 12, but for me, that's amazing. Like that's creative thinking outside the box, using tools that even a year ago, maybe a couple of years ago, she wouldn't have had the ability to use. So take that tiny example into a working environment, and the potential is massive.
Exactly. One of the things that people need to learn is how to actually write prompts for AI. This is an experiment I do with my kids because they love doing these images.
Yeah.
And I tell them, tell the AI specifically what you want it to do. So my little one, my 4-year-old, I want a lion who's eating strawberry ice cream. So we write down that exact prompt and I show her the result.
Yeah.
And I tell her, well, do you want him to do something else with that ice cream? And then I can teach her that if you tell him to wear an astronaut's helmet, he'll wear it. They need to learn how to do these things. And if you teach them from a young age, or you teach your workers early, they'll go much further with AI than if you don't. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've been talking for quite a while. Great conversation. I've learned a lot, as I always do when I speak with you. Always. That's why I enjoy speaking with you. But I want to ask one final question before I let you finish off the tasty whiskey. Failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. Talk to me about one time in your career where you got slapped down, or you learned a hard lesson and you came out the other end in a positive way.
Sure. I was a CEO of a company that failed. This, I didn't talk about it. It's not even on my LinkedIn. It's not on my CV. It's not anywhere. I worked for about a little over 2 years, newspaper that I ran. I was an editor-in-chief. And I had a very specific goal that I needed to accomplish with this newspaper. I've accomplished the goal, but I wasn't able to keep the revenue coming in, either with ads or with writers or with all that. Ultimately, I needed to pay people to do things, and I needed to close the business. And one of the first things that happen when you close a business or when your business fails is that self-doubt.
Yep.
What I did was I was actually really depressed for a while, and I was, mopey and upset. I was really down, and no one can talk me out of it because it was my baby.
Yep.
It was my business, and it failed. And so what I realized was that if I stop being with the self-pity and actually do something, relearn or do things from scratch, that I can get out of it. And that's basically what happened. And when my last business failed, mainly due to the war, we were supposed to launch the product on the 8th of October, and we all remember what happened on the 7th of October.
Yep.
All the flights were canceled. Then we tried launching the product again in New York City in March. And that day of the conference, there was a major snowstorm and the whole city got closed. And we never ended up launching the product. Ultimately, the company ran out of money, and then people were laid off. And I could have taken that same approach, or being mopey and being upset and it didn't work out. But I said, no, I'm not going to let that happen. Granted, I was kind of pissed off for about 2 weeks, and rightfully so. But it was just, on to the next one, Let's go. You cannot let yourself time to grieve. You need to move on. And things were actually going great. I think I was interviewing at 6 companies in a week, which was fantastic. Eventually, I found Y-Stamp, and Y-Stamp found me, and big thanks to my friends who put in a good word for me, by the way. And really, on to the next one, on to better things. Failure, you can't wear it like a tattoo. You need to understand it's part of your life, learn from it, and when next time something similar arises, learn about that resilience, learn about how you passed it the first time, right? Failure is just if you continue making the same mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
If you learn from that mistake and you move on from it and you evolve and you become a better person, you have better things ahead of you. So I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but
it's your answer. It's a great answer, and I think that's a perfect place to stop. But thank you for your time. As always, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Slenjava.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you.